The 2021 NHL Draft is coming upon us here very soon, and we got John here, and we have a very special guest to help us preview this year's draft class. We got Gio Palmero. He has a YouTube channel called LEGOROCKS99. He has about 30,000 subscribers there, the biggest out of all Canucks YouTube. He also covers the Habs, and he covers all NHL storylines, whether it's what's going on in the league, draft prospects, you name it, he does it. And we're very lucky enough to have him here. We're going to leave the link to all that stuff in the bio. So, Gio, thanks so much for joining us.
Absolutely. David, John, been keeping up with your guys' product for a while here. You guys got some good work, so it means a lot to me to be asked to come on to here, and I hope you put on a good show today.
Yeah, no, it's going to be fun. Yeah. You're super knowledgeable when it comes to this stuff. So when we knew we were talking to you, we were both pretty excited.
Yeah, this should be good. We were even saying this is a huge episode for us to get a guest this big. So we're pretty excited.
Yeah, no, it's going to be a lot of fun. But
I don't know if you could hear that. There are sirens outside. Somebody's probably doing some crimes out there. I apologize.
We can't hear it.
No, we're good. We're good. Let's get right into it, though. Basically, what John, Gio, and I are going to be doing is we're going to be running through the Athletics mock drafts. So we'll start at 15, work our way up to 1.
Yeah.
John will preview each player. Gio will give his opinion on them. I'll add any finishing touches. But obviously, we don't want to go all day with this. So if I have not much to say, I'll just pass it on and we'll go to the next pick. And yeah.
So number 15, Fabian Lysell.
Okay.
For Fabian Lysell, he should be going to Dallas Stars at number 15. He is a right winger, and he plays for Luleå in the SHL.
Okay, Gio, take it away.
Fabian Lysell, man, he is an absolute buzzsaw out there. If you want to go out there and get yourselves a guy at 15 like this, honestly, there are some scouts out there who are talking about how Lysell may have the talent to potentially go first overall. The only thing that's bringing him down, though, is his entire path. Because he was playing earlier in the Swedish Junior League, wasn't really being given all too much playing time. Frölunda's got themselves a really good program. Everybody knows Frölunda, right? The Frölunda Hockey Club. Top of the league, U20, U18s. It's a good program. But Lysell wasn't really being given that chance. So what he did was he spoke up and he said, hey, I know that I'm this good. I'm this talented, and I want to play in the SHL, really improve my draft stock this year. And that's what he did. He ended up transferring over to Luleå, and he played himself a year over there, displayed all the talent that he has with his off-puck work ethic, overall instincts, offensive IQ, etc. It really exploded at the U18s this year, though. But because of those issues earlier on, people say issues as if it's a big deal. Oh, he doesn't want to be with his team. He wanted to go to another team. He's selfish. He's this, he's that. I don't really see it that way. I see him mostly as a guy who just knows what he is worth and he wants to get the best out of that. And honestly, if I'm projecting NHL talent, guys who are going to be league stars by the time they're 25, 26, 27, you want guys with a work ethic like Fabian Lysell, who's able to acknowledge what they're worth and push themselves in the direction to go ahead and achieve that. So he's a talented guy, could go as high as somewhere in the top 7, could drop a little bit lower. I know Craig Button, I think, has him somewhere in the 20s. So if a team is able to get him in the 20s, that'd be great. But 15 for Dallas, icing on the cake right there. Could be working out really well with guys like Maverick Bourque. They already have in their system. Obviously, Robertson is really good as well. I like Lysell a lot, man. And if Dallas is getting him at 15, could be a good player.
Yeah, Bob McKenzie has him at 12, and I thought of the arrogant issues, too, that they were saying. But I think this is not one of those cases. We always talk about how players in Europe get the short end of the stick. You were talking about that with Pedersen, too, I think, at one point. Russia. Oh, sorry, not Podkolzin.
Yeah, we were talking about Russia.
Yeah, exactly. And I think this is kind of a similar situation. Like, why would you try to just stand down, not say anything, and maybe ruin your career? You know? Mm-hmm. And if he goes out and proves it in the end, which he did, clearly he was right. Yeah. And also, he's probably the best skater in this draft, which is also huge.
Yeah, one of. I just think that there's a lot of things with Lysell that like suggest that he could be a blue chip prospect, like someone who's in your top 6, could be a steal. He has a lot of those traits, especially offensively. He did great, like Gio mentioned, at the U18s there. So he'll be an interesting one to follow, and I think 15 for him is going to be a great spot if whoever gets him there.
Yeah, from what I've seen, he's probably one of the best bets at 15. If he drops down there, be pretty crazy. Yeah. All right, at 14, Fyodor Svechkov, center for Togliatti in the VHL.
All right, yeah. So Fyodor Svechkov, 14 is the Philadelphia Flyers, is it not? And
Yeah.
yeah, so Fyodor Svechkov is a guy who's honestly one of the better defensive forwards in this draft. He played on a pretty bad team, I'm pretty sure, in the MHL this season, but
Yeah,
he
he
was
did.
still able to go out there, display the skill sets that he has. And if you're drafting him at 14th overall with the Philadelphia Flyers, you already have yourself some pretty good offensive tools. Obviously, you talk about Morgan Frost, you talk about Joel Farabee as well. Lots of pretty good, young, talented offensive guys here. And if you want to balance that out with maybe a two-way skill set, penalty killing guy, a guy who just kind of knows how to play the game right, Fyodor Svechkov could be that guy. Take a look at where exactly he is. Let me check him out here on the prospect system. So Bob McKenzie has him at 30. And that's kind of a little bit of a strange one for me. I know Russian prospects, as you guys were talking about, sometimes they get the short end of the stick, not just when they're drafted and they're in the KHL or whatever, but when they're just in their pre-draft stage careers. So Fyodor Svechkov at 30, not really too sure I see that with Bob McKenzie, but the Athletic, you can see, take a look at your list right there, 14th overall. So this is another one of these guys that could go super high, could go super low. Honestly, because this draft is the way it is, I wouldn't be surprised if we saw Svechkov taken maybe even earlier than 14, maybe like 11 or 13 or 12. I don't want to say top 10, but, anything is possible with this year's crop of guys. But at
Well,
the end of the
yeah, it's
day,
exactly. Oh,
yeah,
sorry, go.
sorry. Capable
No,
two-way
you finish what
guy,
you were saying there.
capable two-way guy, Philadelphia Flyers would be getting a pretty good pickup here, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, like I think you said it best there. With this draft class, like really anything can happen, but Sveshkov is being mentioned as the best defensive forward in the draft, quite possibly. So it's kind of weird to have like one of those like the best defensive forward going so high, because typically like at the top of the draft you see the flashy defenseman, the dynamic offensive player, but because typically these defensive forwards take longer to develop. Like O'Reilly didn't become O'Reilly till he was in his late 20s, till he really hit St. Louis. Couturier didn't become Couturier. Barkov didn't become Barkov. You rattle off the names. It took all these guys years to develop, so they're not very popular picks at the top of the draft. But Svechkov has very high reviews, and especially for his defensive play, like Gio mentioned there. So again, a good pick for Philly and can balance out what they already have as a decent above average for sure prospect pool.
I was seeing the comparable to him was Phil Danault, as we saw the huge role he played in these playoffs, and he wasn't a blue chip prospect when he came up, nothing of the sort, and we saw the huge impact he had, maybe the biggest impact other than Price on this Habs team. So these kinds of players, like, they're almost invaluable. Like what they do, the way they play, they're selfless. The biggest knock on him from what I've seen was his skating. It's kind of hit and miss. That'll have to be something that he develops, but he knows his role and he plays it very well.
Yeah.
And another thing on that note right there, too, taking two-way centers a while to develop, Bo Horvat.
Yeah, that's another good example. Yeah. So.
All right.
No, for sure. Yeah, I mentioned it in the intro. Like, if you're a Canucks fan listening to this, like, Gio covers it like better than anyone. So check him out for sure. And yeah, you can rattle off names of two-way centers that took a while to develop. Patrice Bergeron, like, there's so many of them. So.
Yeah. All right. Next, number 13, we got Cole Sillinger. He is projected to go to Calgary. And
plays in the USHL.
Yeah, he's in the USHL, plays for Sioux Falls. He's a centerman.
Cole Sillinger is probably one of the guys with the best shooting ability in this entire draft. Like, just his ability to generate power and just quickly release it off the ice, get some good elevation, change the angle. He's got an absolute whipper of a shot. However, the biggest thing you notice when you talk about Cole Sillinger, hey, he had 24 goals this season. Okay, 46 points. He had a lot more goals than assists this season with Sioux Falls. And a lot of that has to do with, firstly, it's the transition, because he was in the WHL last season playing for Medicine Hat. He was a lot more of a playmaker back then. He was playing on the wing. He had this good cast of guys around him. He actually outproduced some of the other guys. Like, I think it was Dylan Guenther he had more points than, who was projected as a top pick in this year's draft too. But because the WHL was super uncertain this season, he's got dual citizenship to the U.S. because his father, Mike Sillinger, was playing in Columbus when Cole was born. So he decided to take his talent over to USHL hockey, play for Sioux Falls, and he acted as a pretty big trigger man on that squad, just taking pucks, firing from everywhere. he's got a really raw, talented skill set, good offensive mind, good shooting ability. And for the Calgary Flames, I mean, you talk about guys not stepping up in the playoffs. Johnny Gaudreau, Sean Monahan, these guys not producing. Sure, Gaudreau's the assist playmaker kind of guy. If you want a number one potential goal scorer, Cole Sillinger is a pretty good bet, I think, because you have this outlier, this framework of a guy who could become a really good sniper, but you just got to really dig out of him because he still has some development to go through for sure.
Yeah, no, yeah, you can go.
Yeah, for me, the biggest knock that I saw in Sillinger was that he's not really a team player. Now, again, a lot of narratives are set on these players when they're young, and it could not be true. But based on his play, Scouch was talking about this. He was saying how he's not really a team player. He's really a guy who could create for himself individually, score goals, get his points, but he's not really a guy who's going to elevate his line mates. So for that reason, he might not be a center when it comes time to be in the NHL. He might go to the wing.
Yeah. Well, there's plenty of guys who are centermen in their when they're junior or wherever they're playing before the NHL and then shift to winger when they get there. But I don't know. It's such a bold thing to call like a 17-year-old like or 18-year-old like not a team player. Like I find that kind of ridiculous at that age. But I mean, sometimes it's there. In general, it's just impressive how many goals Sillinger had when he really didn't get that much ice time. So I don't know. I kind of see him. I can see him fitting in Calgary, but I don't know. Those are my thoughts on him.
Yeah. I'm good to go if you guys are.
Yep.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, we're good.
Yeah. So at number 12, we got an interesting little play over here. We got Matthew Coronato, right wing, played for Chicago in the USHL, and he's expected to go to Chicago in the NHL.
He played with Butchler. Well, where Butchler played.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay,
I'm not sure if they played together, but anyways.
Okay.
Friend of ours.
So if you want to talk about Matthew Coronato, the first thing that really pops out to you, the fact that he had 80 points this season, or excuse me, 80 points this season. He was an absolute maniac in the USHL for production. But it's a lot easier to go out there and say, wait, the top 3-4 guys in the USHL in points were all on the same team. Sean Farrell, Montreal Canadiens prospect, being the best among the bunch. Sean Farrell was a very good line mate for Coronato, but Coronato himself is indeed a pretty good talent as well. You got to have that ability to be able to play with highly talented, creative players. And Coronato is one of these guys who just kind of knows everything that he needs to do out there to push play forward. We made a video about him talking about his like pros and cons. It was the Why I Want video on the channel, and a lot of the comments kind of agreed with the same thing. You know, this guy just gets the game. He knows what he needs to do offensively, off the puck, and he's in his own zone as well. It's why he was used in such a prominent role with Chicago this season, despite the fact that he's a draft-eligible prospect. All the other guys in the Chicago Steel that were producing points, Sean Farrell, of course, being the big one, all guys taken earlier in other drafts. They're older, they're over-ager players. Coronato, one of the youngest ones there, was being used just alongside of them, and he was one of the best players in the league because of it. I believe he got himself the best forward of the league award, so you got yourselves a really good prospect over there. It's just a question of how much of that was projected off of his own teammates, how much of that was him being a passenger, and what skills does he have can you pull out of him to project onto your NHL team. So if the Chicago Blackhawks take a look at it, they're like, okay, we got this guy in our backyard. We watch Chicago Steel games because they're just down the road. Seems like a pretty good fit, I think. You have some pretty good players there. Kirby Dach, of course, Lucas Reichel, a lot of really good young guys, Kubalik, etc. So this could be a really good addition to a pretty good young Blackhawks core into the future as well.
Yeah, no, all good stuff there on Coronato. A couple of the knocks on him are that speed, and a lot of people, for some reason, project him being more as a middle of the lineup player. But I don't know. What do you think, John? I'll let you go.
Yeah, his numbers are really good, but I guess it's just an easy league to score in. Like I don't know why people are just kind of ignoring his numbers. I mean, listen, I'm kind of new to this drafting thing. I'm not like I don't know that much about the draft. I'm kind of new to this, but from what this was a weird one for me because from what I saw, it was very impressive the amount of goals and points he had. But he's 5'10", but it seems by his play that's not really an issue for him. He's pretty tough out there. He's resilient. Again, the speed, you were saying his skating needs to be improved.
That can be fixed. So many players have fixed their skating.
And obviously, he's got our favorite adjective, cerebral. So he's not a revolutionary player, but he could be a very solid player in the middle of your lineup and could get power play time. So number 11 pick was Void because of Arizona.
Yeah.
Doing some little trickery there. So number 10, Chaz Lucius, going to Ottawa. And he's a centerman. Yeah, plays for the national development team. Go ahead.
So when you take a look at Chaz Lucius, the first thing that stands out to you, you say, oh, this guy only played 12 games. He was taken out at the beginning of the year with an injury, but Chaz Lucius was always one of these guys with a boatload of star power to his name. You may recall a year ago, you saw the highlights of the U18 team, I believe. Something like that. Yeah, U18, U17 team, where this guy on the NTDP had the puck right in front of the goalie with a few seconds left. I think it was overtime or the third period or something. And he went through the legs, but then after he went through the legs, he pulled it back out to the backhand and then he roofed it like normally. He did a fake through the legs move in the dying seconds of a game. And that's what really put Chaz Lucius on the map for me personally. He was always a really good goal scorer with the NTDP. And this season, when he got taken out with the injury, it took him a while to end up getting to a point where he was able to go back, start playing some games. But as the year went on, he ended up suiting up. And as his career went on later on, he started getting a little bit more comfortable with the NTDP as well. He's got himself a really good ability to score goals. He's got this just innate ability to, I say Cole Sillinger has a really good shot. I think that Sillinger probably has the best shot in this draft. Lucius is probably, in my opinion, the best goal scorer because there's a little bit of a difference, between shooting the puck where the goalie is not and just firing a puck on net from anywhere like a Sillinger does, for example. But Lucius, he's really good in tight. He's got really good hands, stick handle in a phone booth kind of guy. Can get around a goalie, can get around a man, send it out to other players in front that he needs to for getting assists and whatnot. The only knock on Lucius, though, is his foot speed because he isn't really the fastest guy out there, and it's one of the most evident things when you watch the tape. Aside from that, though, off the puck, he's got a two-way presence. He's not afraid to get involved defensively. He's not afraid to back check. The comparison that I saw a lot of people use was actually Tyler Toffoli. So if you've been watching the Canadiens playoff run, you know Tyler Toffoli. He's a goal scorer. He's got a shot. He's got a goal-scoring knack to his game, but he's not the fastest guy out there. He can play penalty kill. He can play defensively. Not the fastest, but a good goal scorer nonetheless. I think I see a lot of Chaz Lucius in Toffoli and Lucius's game as well.
No, number 10 is Ottawa, and if you're adding Chaz to that Ottawa team, who already has a lot of fast, young prospects, that's exciting. Someone who can score goals, like you mentioned, Gio. Also, a knock on him is that decision making. But ultimately, he's a goal scorer. You mentioned the comparable to Tyler Toffoli. That's exactly what we had on our notes here. So, stole our thunder a little bit, but
he hit it out of the park. I got nothing more to say.
Yeah, no, I'd be a great pick for Ottawa, man. I can see him fitting in really well there as a centerman. So,
I mean, a guy like Toffoli is what everyone needs goal scoring except for maybe like Colorado, but everybody needs goal scoring.
Yeah.
And goal scorers are gonna have their flaws. I mean, we saw Pacioretty in Montreal had its flaws, but if you can put the puck in the net, that's huge.
Yeah, for sure.
So anyway.
And look, no team is gonna pass up. Like, I was watching an NHL Network draft preview today, and they were talking about so the guest that they had on, I'm blanking on his name, but he had Dylan Guenther going 1 in the draft. And which is very controversial, obviously, but he said at the end, goal scoring is at such a premium in the NHL, and if you have someone that can score goals, like you mentioned, Gio, the hands on this kid is unreal. That's a great pick at 10.
Yeah. All right. So number 9, we got going to the Vancouver Canucks. Your Vancouver Canucks.
Our Vancouver Canucks.
Your guys' Vancouver Canucks, not mine. Yours. William Eklund, left wing from the SHL.
Yeah.
Oh boy, I'll say this. If William Eklund falls to 9, I'll be very, very happy. You'd been seeing all the rumors over the past few days about the Buffalo Sabres maybe liking Eklund so much to the point that they might take him even first overall if they can't get a second, first, or top 10 pick. But William Eklund is one of these really good perennial perimeter guys. I think he plays his best on the boards when he has the puck, when he has a lot of ice in front of him, because this guy just sees the game a different way. He sees the little openings that nobody else really sees, and he sees where his teammates are going to the point that he knows, okay, my guy over there, he's going to be over here in like 2 seconds. I'm going to send the puck over here. You know the Wayne Gretzky rule, right? You don't go to where the puck is, you go where the puck is going to be. And William Eklund is one of these fantastic playmakers. There's a reason he outscored Alexander Holtz this season in the SHL on the same line. Alexander Holtz, who is that? 7th overall pick for the Devils last year. Eklund was the playmaker to the Holtz sniper. And if you have a guy like this playing on a power play with EP40, Brock, JT, Quinn, this could be a really nice, interesting addition. And it's to the point where I'm actually kind of surprised if he's available at 9th overall. But as we've been saying the entire time, Vancouver's going to get a good player. Just got to wait and see amongst who the top 8 picks are, because somebody is going to fall. If it happens to be Eklund, I'm going to be a really happy camper, because this guy has an offensive ceiling that is through the roof, in my opinion.
Vancouver is gonna they already have an unreal team, man. I keep telling you, they're gonna be a contender very soon, and they're gonna win a cup in the next 10 years. But anyway, that's another conversation.
Yeah, I like fuck the power play. Like,
you guys have like a laundry list of players.
It'd be stupid. It'd be stupid good. I'm not like, I can't see Eklund not projecting to be a top 6, and that'd be a sick fit in Vancouver. Gio is getting into the power play there, but like fuck, that would bump like Bo Horvat to the second, like JT Miller, Brock Besser. Like, who are you bumping down to the second unit? No matter who it is, it's someone fucking insane. And man, I don't know. It would be a sick addition. I feel honestly, his defensive play, I want to talk about that a little, because for Vancouver, that's a big conversation. It's been talked about how he's obviously undersized, not great when it comes to battling for the puck, but his defensive play is like what we have labeled here as being good enough.
All right. Yeah.
He works hard.
Yeah, no, sorry. When I meant battle, I didn't mean the question.
It's like along the boards.
I didn't mean the question is compete. I meant to just like actually being able to come out with the puck. But I don't know. But those are things of concern, obviously. But I'll let you talk about Eklund, but there's something I want to follow up with.
Okay, well, he's 5'10" because he's undersized a little bit. So that kind of partly the reason why he gets maybe outdone a couple times on the boards. But really, one of the things interesting that I saw about him is that once his team started not doing well, his production also dropped. And I guess that's normal for most players, but it's something that scouts noticed with him. So he might be a guy that you want to make sure to play him surrounded by other talent. And on the Canucks, man, there's so much talent on that team, so I think he'd fit right in there.
Yeah. I don't know. Like you mentioned, I don't know which one, Gio or John, one of you guys mentioned how the top of this draft. Oh, Gio mentioned about how someone good is going to fall to Vancouver. And the top 9 of this draft, the way I kind of see it breaking down is you got most people have Power at 1 and then Beniers at 2. Obviously not everybody, but the majority of what I've read so far has those 2 there. And then 3, 4, 5, a lot of people have in some order Guenther, Edvinsson, even though I've seen Edvinsson super low on some rankings, and then either one of Luke Hughes or Brandt Clarke, and then there's Kent Johnson, Eklund, McTavish, and who am I missing here? I'm missing someone. I said Luke Hughes, maybe the goalie Wallstedt. Wallstedt.
Yeah. By the way, about Wallstedt, we kind of skipped him, but they have him at number 17 on this one, going to St. Louis.
Really? Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
A lot of people see him going to Ottawa. That's what I've heard. But that's all speculation, obviously.
Again, the reason for that is, as good as he is, he's potential to be a Vezina candidate, but he's a goalie, and goalies don't
such a crapshoot.
Goalies don't go high. I mean, the last goalie to go top 10, I think, was Carey Price, 2005, from what I saw.
Yeah.
So,
anyways, let's go to number 8.
All right, number 8, going to the LA Kings, Brandt Clarke, right-handed defenseman from Barrie in the OHL.
You want to have a guy to completely come over here as a right-handed D and take after what it is a Drew Doughty can do for you. You draft Brandt Clarke. You give him that mentorship. Brandt Clarke was one of the best offensive defensemen in the OHL last season, and his overall skill set was so good to the point that I think it was like 2 years ago. We were watching I think it was Don Mills Flyers AAA hockey program footage and talking about this Brandt Clarke guy, wow, this guy's fantastic. He was playing alongside of some other guys you may recognize. Shane Wright was on that team,
Shane Wright.
Yeah, Shane Wright was on that team. Brennan Othman was there. Brandt Clarke was on that team as well. I remember the scouting report from 2 years ago talking about how Brandt Clarke projected to being like some sort of a right-handed version of a Quinn Hughes. Now, a few years later, he's not really as fast as Hughes. The foot speed could use a little bit of work. But what Quinn Hughes really does well in the offensive zone is he pivots. He uses his 10-2 skating to get around guys, to deceive his way through, to open up lanes and find passing abilities. or find passing opportunities. Brandt Clarke has a pretty similar ability in my mind to just thread the needle, be creative in the offensive zone, be this creative passing guy who's just got a knack for creating goals. And sure, he could use a little bit of work on his shooting ability, but when it comes to the prime offensive instincts that an offensive defenseman could possess, I think Brandt Clarke has a lot of that. And he may not be the most mobile, quick guy, but he's agile enough to the point that it really helps him in the offensive zone. So there's a reason this guy is projected to go so high. And it's a lot of what to do with that entire profile of being an offensive defenseman who can produce points, who can quarterback a power play. He produced a whole bunch of points this season in Slovakia. He was at 20 points in 26 games or whatever. And that's a pro men's league. So take with that what you will. A teenager going over to a pro men's league doing that. But Brandt Clarke to the Kings, I think would be a really good fit. They've got some left-handed defensemen that I like. Tobias Bjornfot, Helga Grans. Obviously, the guys up forward, we know how good they are. Tyler Madden, Turcotte, Kaliev, Byfield, the list goes on. But right D is a little bit of a weak spot, I think. It's right D in goaltending in my mind. So Clarke fills a need, also happens to be really good. No problems there at 8.
Yeah, no, you touched on that LA prospect pool that they have, and it is an incredible one. I think the best in the league, based on the research I've done. But Brandt Clarke, you talked about how he went to Slovakia this year, and the biggest thing, not only about the points, not only about the play, but from people who know him and whether it's his agent or scouts, is how much he matured over that time too. And that's a big thing, especially when you're coming to trying to get someone in the NHL as soon as possible and thinking about their development. But also, I just find in general, the OHL, in this draft class, you might see there's not very many OHL names on this top 15, unlike usual. And I feel like with them not playing any games this year, it really hurt the status of a lot of their guys. And I think there's going to be some steals out of the OHL in later picks. And I think Brandt Clarke going to a men's league, even though he did perform well there, I think at the start of the year, people had him in that top 5 conversation like as a lock. And at 8, LA would be very, I think, lucky to get him at 8.
Yeah. I don't know as much about Brandt Clarke, I'll be honest. He's one of the ones that I just didn't research much about. So that's interesting, everything I heard. I'm learning just like the viewers right now. So this is very good stuff, boys. Number 7, going to the San Jose Sharks. You like this guy a lot. Kent Johnson, center for Michigan in the Big Ten.
Oh boy, Kent Johnson, the dangliest guy of the draft. I think it was Will Scouching. His video, I think the title was like, if NHL 21 were real. And
that's what I was going to say.
I think it was like, yeah, exactly, right? Like, he made that comparison, and I was started to think about it. I was like, oh, he's kind of right, you know? Kent Johnson is probably the guy who, if I had to choose, who do I want to watch, like, just practice, you know? Throw some cones in the ground, throw a net with, like, some targets. I want to see this guy work. Kent Johnson's that guy because he's got the crazy hands. He's got the offensive playmaking ability. There are a lot of knocks to his game. Don't get me wrong. The guy was going out there, maybe not using his teammates as best as he could have. If NHL 21 were real, you know, when you play NHL 21, you get selfish a lot with the puck. Kent Johnson could use a little bit of work in using his teammates a little bit more. But when it comes to the pure offensive capabilities of this guy, he produced like heck for a reason at the NCAA level, just as a freshman, was in the BCHL last year, tearing up that scene. He knows how to be the guy on a team. And his ceiling is incredibly high because of all the things that we have listed here. He noted that the player that he kind of likes to watch the most is Elias Pettersson because he's from BC over here. He loves the Vancouver Canucks. And when it comes to talent, offensive creativity, and dangly ability, man, this guy's got it. So Kent Johnson at 7 to the Sharks could be a really good complement to all the other guys that they have. And if he's really able to unlock his true potential, he could be seen as one of the top players on that squad.
Yeah, I know 7 is San Jose, and we haven't listed here as San Jose, whatever. I'm going to talk about it from Vancouver's perspective because, a BC guy going to Vancouver, someone who referenced it in an interview literally in the past week saying that his favorite players in the league to watch, Patty Kane and then Elias Pettersson. It would be sick. But obviously some knocks to his game. And when you really take a deep dive at the numbers, I think both of you at one point referenced Scouch throughout the video, but in that video he really shows like in terms of like primary points, he really doesn't contribute as much as one would suspect, and he's really been put in very favorable positions on what was a very strong Michigan team this season. So some concern there, but at the end, someone who's good defensively, which is important, especially if you're Vancouver right now, and someone who's killer offensively, who's super dynamic and just a really as exciting as prospects get, in my opinion. So, and I had a point per game as a freshman and a young freshman too at that. So I'm looking forward to see how where he goes and how he does when he gets here.
Yeah, obviously, kind of the highlight reel of the draft this year. But you know, when he gets to the NHL and he tries to pull that, he's gonna make some mistakes along the way. But again, they're there to get entertained, and he's definitely gonna entertain the fans. But I think coaches might have a problem with him, maybe as he develops, because he might make some mistakes. But in the end, this guy's super exciting, and I don't know what fan wouldn't want him on their team, especially if he plays good defense. So I'm getting on to number 6 if you are. Number
Yeah,
6.
let's do it.
Number 6, going to the wings, Mason McTavish, center from Peterborough, Ontario.
Oh man, so the Red Wings don't have the best center depth in the long term. Like, I know Dylan Larkin's good. Joe Veleno's supposed to be pretty good. And then you have Berggren and a few other guys. Okay, that's cool. But Mason McTavish could become one of the guys to insert himself into that territory. Not only make it so that you have Larkin, Veleno, Berggren, etc., but you have this other guy who can come in as a boy who plays a man's game. You saw at the World Under-18s just how strong Mason McTavish is on the puck. A lot of that has to do with the experience that he gained in, Switzerland, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, Olten in the Swiss League. He was a point per game, just under a point per game over there, playing as a kid in a pro men's league. And as he got more games, as he got more exposure, he really started to dominate a little bit more, take over shifts, take over the offensive zone, because Mason McTavish is a guy who just doesn't really back down. I know some people like Cam Robinson, for example, they have him as high as number 2 because this is a guy with a shot that's really killer. He's got a work ethic that doesn't quit, a big solid frame that can help him along the boards, and he just does what needs to get done as a two-way presence and an offensive facilitator. So if the Red Wings are able to get this kind of guy, I wouldn't be surprised. Steve Yzerman likes to take that big swing on a guy that, most people wouldn't expect. You saw it in 2019 with Moritz Seider, yeah. Then 2020, Lucas Raymond. I thought it was a great pick. Not everybody thought that Raymond at 4 would have been the best pick, but Steve Yzerman gets ambitious with his picks. So if it's Mason McTavish, I think it could be a really interesting one for sure.
Yeah, like we're getting right to the range where I've researched a ton because these are guys who could fall to Vancouver. And it's funny because you talk about Cam who had him at 2. I've seen multiple people who have him even as low as like 13, 14, 12, that range. So I feel like this is one of the guys kind of similar to Edvinsson who could go. There's a wide range for where this guy can fall. And at first I wasn't super excited by him because it didn't seem like he brought he wasn't super dynamic. He didn't I watched him at the U18s and he was obviously really good there, but I don't know. It just seems he seems very different than a lot of the other guys in this range, but I don't know. He's physical, obviously has a strong shot, decent sized body. Obvious skating can use a little improvement, and obviously not a ton of offensive flair there. From what I saw, it doesn't drive play particularly well, but at the end, he brings, scouts love this word, brings a good motor. He's gonna work hard. He team first kind of guy, and someone who could be a fit with the Red Wings to balance out a lot of the skill that they have coming up.
Yeah, Lou, you hit it out of the park, and I think you're going to start hitting them out of the park now with all these picks that you've researched. But I just wanted to add, he's got a big body, 6'2", he's listed as an elite prospects, and he's physical. And obviously, we know the way they treat smaller players. They love those big physical players in the draft. And I think he's going to end up going high. But again, with this draft, the athletic ranking that we could see can get totally turned over.
Mm-hmm,
I think this draft, more than any other, we're going to see this thing going out the window. All right, so number 5 to the Blue Jackets, Simon Edvinsson, left-handed defenseman from Frölunda in the SHL.
All right, so you want to talk about a big, solid defenseman who knows what it takes to get things done. You have one of those in Seth Jones, but he's not going to be there anymore, most likely, right? All the trade rumors, he doesn't want to re-sign. They're probably going to move him out somehow. Well, replace it with a nice big body in Simon Edvinsson, who can also play the right side, if I'm not mistaken, despite being a left-handed defenseman, who is also a big frame, and he knows how to play well on the back end. Now, I've kind of said this before, but Simon Edvinsson's a guy who, in my opinion, plays the best when the puck is not on his stick and when he's defending opposition rushes. He's probably one of the best guys in the draft when it comes to just being able to neutralize the opponents coming into the zone, either using his gap control, waving his stick, chopping the puck away from opponents, or closing in and bodying them off to the boards. He's really strong defensively, but when it comes to his on-the-puck instincts, that's kind of where the question marks lie. Sure, the U18s showed off really well, got a lot of points over there. But you take a look at what Edvinsson did in the Frölunda Hockey Club this season with the SHL, wasn't necessarily the guy who facilitated play in ways that you would like to. You could say, oh, it's due to maturity. Oh, it's due to not being comfortable as a young guy in a men's league, whatever it is. At the end of the day, though, Simon Edvinsson does have a lot of work to do on the puck, getting it to his teammates. He would frequently cough up pucks a lot, which wasn't really all too great. But at the end of the day, this is a guy who, if you're able to capitalize on what's there and what's good, really bring those things up, he could be a really solid top 2 defenseman down the line. He could be one of the best players in this draft. It's not guaranteed with him, nor is it guaranteed with Guenther, nor is it guaranteed with Power or Hughes or Johnson or McTavish or any of these guys. A lot of these guys have extremely high ceilings. Edvinsson is one of them. And if he's going over to Columbus, hey, they know how to develop defensemen. So we'll see how exactly that's going to go over there long term.
What I've seen with Edvinsson is that he probably has the widest range of potential in the draft. So he can have a very low floor and a very high ceiling. He's a big body, 6'5", but he can also skate. And that's a very lethal pairing because that allows him to get out on the rush, but also come back on defense. And the biggest problem with him, from what I've seen, is his shot. He really needs to work on that shot. And for a big guy like that, you would think that he can just let it rip. And I think maybe with some coaching, they can get that shot to be really good. But he's not going to be a Shea Weber.
The shot I'm not even that concerned about. Like Elias Pettersson talked about how much he changed his shot in only a matter of a couple seasons. I'm referencing Pettersson obviously as a
Seems like the easiest thing to fix, to be honest with you.
It seems something that can be fixed. But the biggest, you're right, John. There is a massive range. And I referenced it just before. Bob McKenzie had him at 2. And I'm pretty sure it was Craig Button I was listening to today. Had him at 12. And obviously not the sexiest player to pick at that spot. He's not someone who's probably going to contribute offensively that much. So, and then obviously defensive game, he's 6'5", he's big, he's going to fill out. But how does that translate to the NHL? We don't know. And I think that's a big reason why he varies so much, because a lot of teams high, they like the offense, they like the points, they like the goals, because ultimately the goals are huge. That's what fans love. But what's the saying? Goals sell tickets and defense wins championships. So
I've never heard that before.
We'll see where they go. Well, we'll see where he goes.
All right, next at number 4, we have the third Hughes brother going to join his brother in New Jersey. Luke Hughes, left-handed defenseman from the National Development Program. I don't know why I blanked on that, but take it away.
Yeah, so, Luke Hughes at 4 isn't really the pick that I think a lot of people who really research the draft and take a look at it, I think some people wouldn't really have Hughes at 4, but it's to the point where, he's one of these guys. He could go as high as 2nd or 3rd or maybe even 1st. Could go as low as number 9 or 10. So crapshoot at this point. Really just put the names on a hat and pull them out one by one. But for Luke Hughes at 4, this is the one that probably would make the most sense based off of what we've seen in the media. New Jersey, the NHL promoting that Jack Hughes quote where he said, "Oh, I'd love to have my brother playing here." And then you had the NHL Prospects media conference the other day where Luke was like, "Yeah, I'd love to play with my brother," and all that stuff. Obviously, he talked about how there are other good teams out there as well. But Luke Hughes, if you're wanting to draft this guy and you're thinking, oh, we're going to get the next Hughes, we're getting Quinn Hughes Part 2. Fortunately, that's not what you're getting here. Quinn Hughes is an offensive dynamo cowboy who plays his best with the puck on his stick. He can get around the ice quickly, can survey the ice, whip around the net, and score points. Luke Hughes is a little bit more defensively tuned. He's a lot more of a straight line skater, I see. And his overall shooting ability, I think it's a lot more developed than when Quinn Hughes was in this age when he was younger. But as Luke said in the that same NHL prospects conference. He's a lot bigger. He's 6'2". Quinn and Jack, I believe they're only 5'10". Also, Luke kills penalties. He's a lot more defensively relied upon than his older brother Quinn was when Quinn was his age. And so at this point, you take a look at Luke Hughes, who is one of the youngest players in the draft. Got to remember, Owen Power is almost a full year older than this guy. So that's an extra year's worth of development to look at when it comes to this draft. If Luke Hughes was born, I think it was like 2 weeks later, he would have been eligible for next year and not this year. So really good young prospect, high ceiling, maybe a top pairing potential kind of guy who can facilitate play both ways, get some points, create offense in the offensive zone. He's a really good player. It's just, if New Jersey's taking him at 4, I want to see a better reason than, oh, it's just because he's the brother. Like, he could go 4, but as long as you're getting him for the correct reasons, I think that's all that matters here.
Yeah, no, for sure. Luke Hughes is a heck of a player, like you mentioned there. And like you talked about, he could have gone, some people have him at 3, 2, heck, even 1. So, like, I think you can justify it at 4. But there's a history of draft picks in the New Jersey organization being traced back to Jack Hughes. If you look through the entire 2019 draft class, you can trace almost every one of those picks through rounds 1 to 6 to Jack Hughes in some way, whether it's someone he played minor hockey with, junior hockey with, family friend, USA National Development Program, you name it. It goes back to Jack Hughes somehow. And then in terms of comparing him to his brother Quinn, you're right. Defensively, he's I like the word you used, fine-tuned, a little more fine-tuned defensively than Quinn Hughes. But I don't know. I think I don't think the offensive game is necessarily the same as what Quinn brings, but obviously I think Quinn Hughes is going to be a top 3 offensive in terms of what he brings offensively out of all defensemen for the next 10 years in the NHL. So it's hard to match. I can see him being a good fit to Jersey at 4, but the only thing is with Jersey is that Ty Smith looked to be a good offensive defenseman. If you're hoping that PK finds his game, which I think is a long shot, but he's an offensive defenseman and you're still paying him $9 million. I don't know if Nashville retrained salary on that trade, but I don't know. I can see him slipping past Jersey, but the brother thing is such a marketing slam dunk if you get Luke Hughes with Jack. Fuck, I don't even think Vancouver needs another offensive defenseman.
And then after
I love him in Vancouver.
Then you know what Jersey has to do after that? They gotta grab Quinn from you guys so they can make it the trio.
Yeah.
How would you feel about that?
Boy.
I would cry I would take my Quinn Hughes jersey and cry in it for a week.
But from what I've been reading, it's really his offensive game is the biggest thing. Maybe I've been reading one side of the game only, but from what I'm seeing, he's a great skater. He's good on offensive transitions, and his potential is a puck-rushing offensive defenseman who can also play defense, though. That's the big thing. And I think I saw the comparison to Erik Karlsson.
Yeah.
I might be looking at the wrong guy, but I think it was him.
No, look, he's his offensive transition game is elite. He's a one-man breakout machine, don't get me wrong. I just meant in terms of how he is laterally and how he just opens up space for himself and contributes offense like that. I meant it's not the same level that Quinn's at. That's all I meant.
Yeah, no, for sure. We have that in notes right here. Lateral mobility needs to be improved, so.
I didn't even see that. But, Joe, anything else you want to add to Luke Hughes before we move on?
I think you could, if you want to take a look at the Devils, I mean, Ty Smith, yes, he is there. Luke Hughes can play right. I think he played the majority of this season on the right side, despite being a left-handed defenseman. So, you see some guys that do that. Nate Schmidt is the big one in Vancouver. Yeah. But, it is possible, especially with PK maybe not really being the best version of himself. You could have a Smith-Hughes pairing, I think. But, at the same time, both of those guys are really offensively capable. Where's the defense coming from on that line? So, a lot of other questions to be asked, I guess.
Yeah.
At number 3 to the Ducks, we got Dylan Guenther, right wing from the WHL in Edmonton.
All right. So, Craig Button and Scouching have both said similar things about this guy, but when it comes to Dylan Guenther, obviously the first thing you take a look at, he's 6'1", 175. Nice. He was at 2 points a game in the WHL. Very nice. 12 games played, 12 goals, 12 assists. He was the highest scoring WHL U18 forward since I think it was Madano and Sakic or whatever back in the late 80s or something. So the points per game, off the charts. However, when it comes to Dylan Guenther, the way this guy plays the game, if you're drafting him thinking that he's going to be your number one Mitch Marner kind of guy, not really too sure that's where he's heading down. The comparison that Craig Button used was William Nylander, in that he's a very good complementary guy. Any team would like to have a William Nylander. But is William Nylander going to be the best player in your squad? Probably not. Tavares is there, Marner's there, Matthews is there. Nylander is a passenger in comparison to those guys, but he's still a very, very offensively capable guy who really thrives off of the energy that those guys brings. And that's kind of what Guenther is to me as well. Not really going to be the guy who drives the ship, but the guy who's like the second-hand man, becomes a very good complementary piece. You play him with good players, all of a sudden, boom, he's gotten like, I don't know, 25, 30 goals in a season, maybe 70 points or whatever. Maybe not going to be that top of the line play driver, but a really, really good complementary guy who can find pucks in deep, who can score goals. He needs a little bit of space to do it. So once things start cramping up a little bit more as he gets to higher levels of hockey, we'll see how he adjusts that way. But the likelihood of him panning out is pretty high, I think, which is why he's ranked so high from all of these scouting outlets. I think it was Bob McKenzie also having him at second. So he's a really good player. Would fit pretty well with a Trevor Zegras kind of guy in Anaheim. So that's kind of a fit that I like to see as well.
You know me, you want me to say?
Go ahead.
Okay. So, like I mentioned earlier, I saw NHL Network tell me why he could be a number 1 pick. And obviously many scouts don't have him listed there. That's quite a reach. But he does have that two-way potential, and the offensive game is so tough because the WHL, you mentioned there, with 12 games played, it's so tough to evaluate a player based on 12 games. Now, I know he also played at the U18 championships where he looked good, but the guy can score. And who doesn't like a guy who could score goals? We talked about that earlier in the episode. But, man, I don't know. It'll be very interesting to see. But I think out of all those guys on the tier below Power and Beniers, I think Guenther is very highly regarded as like that number 3. So I can see Anaheim taking him for sure.
Watch him go like 15 or something.
Nah, with this draft, fuck, who knows?
But anyway, when you get a guy who can score and pass like that, but can also play defense, he's like the complete package. So I think he could be useful for any team, especially Anaheim. And again, you said he did not play much in 2021. I think the COVID thing is going to affect a lot of these players.
Especially from Canada.
You were making a highlight pack for your friend who's actually going where?
He just got drafted to the O.
Got drafted to the O. And it's affected all the players, all of his friends, everybody. Mm-hmm. They've been trying to make their highlight packs. They haven't been playing that much. So this could mean that a lot of these draft picks can go too high, too low. You might see a lot of steals, a lot of breakout surprises. So I think he's been affected by this, but he still managed to become a very, very highly touted player. So that's pretty exciting to see. You get to move on?
Yeah, I'm good to move.
Yeah. All right. Matthew Beniers, centerman from the Michigan Big Ten, going to the Seattle Kraken.
If you want to talk about building a franchise, taking a guy as your first pick ever, second overall in the 2021 draft, I don't think there's any better of a fit than Matthew freaking Beniers. This is the kind of guy that if he hits his ceiling, he could just be a very capable, all-round, no mistakes kind of hockey player. Everything, he's got it. Offensively, he can create dangerous plays. He can score goals. Defensively, away from the puck, he just does everything right. Along the boards, checking guys, using his stick, going in with effort to steal pucks away. He's a pickpocket machine at the NCAA. And for the Seattle Kraken, this is the kind of guy that when you're down a game or you're down a goal with 2 minutes left in the game, you throw out there because you want to see him clutch up and score a goal. When you start a game off, you throw him out there because you want to get that quick start. If you're up in a game, it's the end of the series or whatever, you're in game 7, you're up 3-2, it's a defensive zone draw, you throw Matty Beniers out there with 40 seconds left when the other team has the empty net. He is at all situations, Patrice Bergeron kind of like guy who honestly just has so few flaws in the way that he plays the game that I think that he could be a foundational piece for a Seattle Kraken team and a guy that the fans, the coaches, the team, they're all going to love and rally behind. Now, could he produce like 100 points in this season? I'd say it's probably unlikely. Don't think he has that high offensive octane, like franchise potential, like number set to his game. But could he be a consistent, maybe 60, 70 point guy? I would say so. I think he's got that ceiling. But on top of all the other stuff that he does, I think it really puts the value into him as an all-round, every situations kind of hockey player. And that's kind of why I think Matthew Beniers to Seattle would be a fantastic choice.
He's comparable to a player you really like, Barzal. He's the kind of guy, he's the glue that holds the line together, the team together. Really a team guy, cerebral, elite playmaking, flashes of scoring. As he said, he does it all. This is a guy you want on any team. He's like a Swiss Army knife. And these are the kind of heart and soul guys that you need to go deep in the playoffs, like you see with the Islanders. So this is why he's number 2 or even number 1 in a lot of places. Very impressive player. These are the kind of guys that fans love to cheer for. And yeah, that's all I got to say. Take it away.
Gio said it, man. No better way to start off your franchise than adding Beniers. The first time that I really noticed him was at the World Juniors this past end of December, going into the new year. He started on USA's third line and immediately impressed a lot of people. And by the end, he was playing in top 6 and was a very relied upon forward for them. He did it all with Michigan this year, and he's going to do it all wherever he goes. He's a very safe pick for this spot in the draft. And I don't know. There's a reason why a lot of people have him going 1, and it's because I say a lot, but not the majority. Obviously, Owen Power is still very highly respected.
Well, Scouch has him at 1, no?
Yeah, no. There's Scouch. I think Corey Pronman of The Athletic, I believe, has him there too. But man, I think Beniers, if he goes to Seattle, that's a great way to start off your franchise, and he's someone who's going to step into the NHL next season. So
projectable.
I don't see how he doesn't.
Yeah.
One more thing to add, I would say. You talked about the U18 or the World Juniors. What was Matty Beniers' role in the World Junior team? It wasn't scoring goals. You wanted to get Zegras and Caulfield and all those guys scoring goals. They told Beniers at the World Juniors, okay, you're going to go out there. You're going to just be a disturbance. You're going to go into the boards. You're going to battle hard. You're going to get pucks free. You're going to send those pucks over to Zegras, and he's going to get all the points. And guess what? He did it. And he did it well. Like, he doesn't need to be like a point-producing machine to be effective, because you can tell Beniers whatever assignment, he's got it down, and he's going to be able to do what you want.
Yeah, that's why you use the word cerebral, our favorite word.
No, that word is a word that kind of have an inside joke on it. We kind of just roast it because it's so overused, I feel like.
Yeah.
But a lot of times it's very important. We see, like, I'm a Habs fan. You see, like, Suzuki. You could see it on the ice. He's very cerebral. Like, certain guys, like, it's no joke.
Yeah.
It's definitely true. But number 1, Owen Power. No surprises here. Going to Buffalo. Left-handed D-man from Michigan, Big Ten.
Yeah, so what was it? Like, unanimous 10 out of 10 scouts surveyed had him at number 1 or something like that. I forgot what the quote was from Bob McKenzie, but scouts have this guy at number 1. And if you take a look at the potential, the ceiling, what this guy could be, it's easy to see why. He's big. He's got a big shot. He can skate like the wind. He can just go down with the puck, barrel his way to the offensive zone, and create offense that way. But there's a very big other crowd in the prospects community, in the hockey community, that is trying to make the pitches as to why other guys should be first overall instead. Because with Owen Power, even though he's got this extraordinarily high ceiling, he's not perfect. There are a lot of things that you have to work on with this guy in order to really bring out what could be the best version of his game. I believe they used the Victor Hedman comparable. I believe it was like Craig Button or something. I forgot. But if you want to go out there and get yourselves a big guy with a big shot on the back end, Victor Hedman's a pretty good comparable there. And Owen Power has all the tools, I think, and the potential to really bolster himself up there as a very good player. And it really solidified as he played for Team Canada at the World Championships this season. There he played in the pairing with Troy Stecher. He was fantastic. Troy Stecher did a lot of work. So did Power. Did a lot of offensive creativity, did a lot of defensive things properly, and was a very big part as to why they won the gold medal in that tournament. So for Owen Power, he's already shown that he can play off against men. He's saying that he may be leaning towards sticking it out with Michigan for another season, which, in my opinion, fantastic move. Give him that second year with the Wolverines. We saw it happen to guys like Werenski. We saw it happen to Quinn Hughes. We saw it to Cam York. The second year at Michigan really helps out these guys. And I think if Owen Power gets thrown in there for a second year, I think it could be really good. If you want to rush him into the NHL, I mean, I think you'd have her, if you're expecting like an Aaron Ekblad or a Rasmus Dahlin kind of guy, I'm not really too sure you're going to get that immediately, but still, Owen Power long-term, I think he's got a boatload of potential. So first overall, I could see why. I'm just kind of I think that's probably what's going to happen at this point based off of the scouts.
Yeah, who doesn't want a 6'5", two-way defenseman? And You talk about not rushing him to the NHL. What's the rush to get to Buffalo right now, honestly, based on what we saw last season? There's no rush to get there, really. And I think Canadian hockey fans were robbed that he was not allowed to go to the World Juniors this past winter. Because, man, I think it would have shown a lot. And a lot of people, unfortunately, make a lot of very strong opinions based on that 2-week tournament. And it would have allowed us to see Owen Power a lot easier than being at Michigan, which was a very stacked team, as Canada would have been. But you talk about it. Other comparables to throw out there, names like Dustin Byfuglien in his prime, Brent Burns. He's got a couple Norrises. And I think Owen Powers, even though his defensive game needs work, obviously, he still projects to be a two-way defenseman, which, man, who doesn't want that?
Yeah, I mean, he's got it all. His name sounds like a freaking superhero. That's the first thing that I saw. But he can drive a power play. He's got a great shot, passing, cerebral. He's got everything, man. And I know we have Brent Burns on our list as a comparable, but I don't even think that's a good comparable because I think he can play better than Brent Burns on defense. Yeah. Brent Burns, wasn't he a forward at one point?
No, Byfuglien was.
Byfuglien was.
Was Burns also?
I think they were both.
Byfuglien for sure was. I have like images of him standing in front of Luongo in like 2010 and scoring. That'll never be able to get out of my mind. But yeah, Burns, I don't know.
That's why I think he's gonna be pretty. I mean, when you compare it to Burns, he's gonna be more solid than Burns defensively. So I will at least Buffalo hopes. Yeah. So we'll see what happens with that. But he's gonna eat up big minutes for Buffalo as a top pairing D, and he's probably gonna go first overall.
Can't go wrong.
I'll just add one more thing. So Brent Burns was drafted as a right wing and eventually played some shifts with the Sharks in that position, which kind of screws up the entire, should he have won the Norris conversation? Because, I mean, he's technically a forward. Yeah. But, I mean, it is what it is. It happens.
Isn't that crazy getting drafted as a right winger and going defense?
Then winning a Norris. Winning a Norris on top of that.
To be fair to Norris, it's all about points.
It is. Yeah. It's basically who's the best forward out of all defensemen.
Yeah, exactly.
But, hey, last year, John Carlson had a shit ton of points, and they gave it to Yossi. So I'm not going to rip the PWHA too much. They got it right last year. And I think this year with Adam Fox, they got it right again. So,
just to end off, I'm going to brutalize his name, but you guys want to talk about Wallstedt a little bit?
You didn't brutalize his name.
I didn't.
Oh, yeah, sure. Let's talk about Wallstedt, man. So when it comes to goaltenders, I mean, we saw a similar story last year with Yaroslav Askarov, wherein nobody who has ever been this young has made the VHL and the KHL and done this well as Askarov before. For Wallstedt, it's a similar story. You've never had a goaltender this young play in the SHL before, and especially play to the standard that Wallstedt is in. So this guy was a really capable goaltender for the Luleå Hockey Club. He had a great representation for Team Sweden as well as at all the tournaments. Like, if you want to talk about projecting franchise talent, all the other great Swedish netminers, the Lundqvists and the Markstroms and all that, Wallstedt is doing what they were doing at a younger age. So this is a guy who's like a year behind everybody else, despite being already a very capable goaltender. And everything he does, he's technical. He doesn't use up any energy. He's always got the positioning in the right way. He knows what it takes to make saves. He can be big. He can just block pucks. I mean, we saw Spencer Knight make a really quick impact with the Panthers this season, straight out of Boston College, or was it Boston University? I think it was Boston College. And he only lost like one game, I think, in the NHL. It's despite being a 19-year-old. He played, I think it was like over 5 games, and he only lost once.
And he played great in the playoffs.
Yeah, exactly, right? Like, young goalies are breaking into this scene where we can start to see them more and more. It's not like Thatcher Demko. He was drafted in 2014. It's 2021 now, and he's starting to become like a starter. 7 years. You're not going to have to wait 7 years for Wallstedt. So I think this could be a really good player.
I just wanted to say this one thing, really. I'm not going to talk too much about it. Just the one thing. Goalies usually don't go in the top 10, but I think if there's a year for it to happen, it might be this year.
Yeah.
There's a lot of picks that you're not really too sure about that can go anywhere. Why not take a goalie?
Yeah. It's a bit of a crapshoot, but if there is a goalie to bet on, since 2005 where Carey Price was the last one to go in the top 10, it is Jesper Wallstedt.
Really?
He's been awesome at every single level.
Wow. Okay.
There hasn't been a point where you're like, okay, maybe this guy isn't going to be a starter in the NHL one day, in my opinion. And I saw someone questioning his athleticism, but I was listening to reports on him, and the thing is that he really doesn't really need to show his athleticism that much because he's so good positionally and he's so good at just staying in the play that he doesn't need to make those outrageous, crazy diving across like Marc-Andre Fleury type glove saves out of the air that a lot of those goalies need to make because he's so good at just staying in the play, competing, and I don't know. In my opinion, he is athletic, so I think that's.
I noticed that about Vasi in the finals. I mean, I guess the Habs didn't test him enough, but he didn't have to move very much. He was always in position. He didn't have to make any crazy saves.
Yeah, no, it's a quality of a great goaltender. So I don't know. And
that's it for our players.
So that's really it with our mock draft. We went 15 through 1. Been running a lot longer than we expected. So
Yeah.
Gio, thank you so much for joining us. You killed it. Honestly, it was really impressive talking with the draft because I've watched a few of the Why I Want videos, and I remember the first one you did for this season was Luke Hughes, and you introed it by saying, "These are the guys I get my info from. I'm not one of them. I'm not claiming to be one of them, but honestly, talking to you has been just as, if not more impressive than a lot of what I've seen on YouTube and wherever I get my content from. So thank you so much for coming on."
Yeah, this is all the information all in one place, so it's going to be easy to follow when you got all the information from a great guest,
source.
So, yeah.
Hey, I appreciate that, guys. I think maybe that little speech at the beginning might have just been the imposter syndrome coming out here to play. But you know what? I'm very interested in the draft this year. I'd said it a bunch in the channel before, but I think last year I kind of really took it easy on the prospects, and I felt really bad about that. So this year I really wanted to go into the tape, look at the footage, see what's going on with these guys. So I'm no scout. I don't get paid to scout or whatever. I don't get like special access to anything, but just a guy who kind of likes the prospects. So very happy to talk about that here with you guys here on the Uncontested Sports Show. So that means a lot to me, guys. Thank you so much for having me on, David and John as well.
Yeah, no, it was really fun. We'll hopefully have you on again sometime soon. And I mentioned right off the top, but check out Gio's work. He has a YouTube channel, LEGOROCKS99, nearing 30 subs, I believe, right?
We're at 27. Yeah, something like that.
So nearing 30 subs. So go hit that sub button. Help him get to 30K. And because he's just awesome. Like you saw today, he kills it. So thanks so much. We'll hopefully do it again soon. And check out all of our socials. We'll leave those in the description as well. Hit subscribe if you liked what you watched. Like it. All the YouTuber stuff, whatever. And that's a wrap. John, anything from you?
That's it.
Cool. That's a wrap.